is done offshore. The head of Unifor Local 195 says we need to make them here so we are not so vulnerable.
We have a great engineering ability here in Windsor. We have lots of technology. We have a research department. And we have done something way bigger and way more challenging than a microchip.
Yeah, so this is a multi-billion-dollar bill, and it's very comprehensive. You see, it's over a couple thousand pages long.
MP Brian Massey says the U.S. has already passed legislation to spend billions to foster microchip production in the U.S.
So while we were asleep, the partnerships are developing. In fact, there's plants being developed in Arizona. They already had some production there, but Intel is ramping up production there, and there's others. So there's billions of dollars that are now being laid out in the United States, and they'll be producing rather soon. What we should have been doing is partnering, but we don't have a strategy on this, and that's the problem without having a national auto strategy.
A spokesperson for the microchip industry in Canada agrees investment needs to be made, and a strategy is important.
The chips that the automotive industry are looking for in this moment are older technology. It's going to be replaced by new generation chips soon. And if Canada's going to make a large investment, because it's going to take billions of dollars, this is not a small investment, then I think we need to be thinking about how we bring manufacturing onshore for what's coming next. So sort of skate to where the puck is going rather to where it's been.
And that's what the U.S. has actually been about here. So not only just producing their own chips for the current market, but they're also producing the next versions.
CBC News has requested a comment from MP Eric Kuzmerchik, but we haven't heard back. Even if Canada started developing a microchip industry now, it would be too late to solve the current shortage. Pravet says we should make the most of what we have as bargaining chips to procure the microchips.
Because we know that we have rare earth minerals and natural resources that are vital to this supply chain. So how do we actually leverage that as a bargaining tool?
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor police tell CBC News they will not be providing auxiliary officers to patrol Forest Glade Optimist Park in the fall. This is the area in Windsor's East End where 2 teenagers were pepper sprayed. Police say 10 to 12 masked individuals also had a taser and possibly a gun. During the spring and summer months, Windsor police auxiliary officers patrol this park and others across the city, but that stops after Labor Day. Windsor's mayor, who's also the chair of the police board, said yesterday they were looking at extending that program in Forest Glade in an effort to improve safety. But today, Windsor police confirmed that's not happening, and they did not say why. No suspects have been arrested in relation to the pepper spray attack that happened September 10th. A multi-million-dollar plan to add some shade and shelter to a Windsor waterfront venue is going before Windsor City Council. It's a proposal to build a canopy over Riverfront Festival Plaza on Riverside Drive. It includes a translucent roof that will ensure the show goes on, rain or shine, while keeping temperatures comfortable for spectators. In a tweet, Windsor's mayor said this is about dreaming big as a city with an eye to the future. Overall, the plan to revitalize the area is estimated to cost $32.5 million, with the canopy itself coming in at $13.5 million. Councillors are expected to weigh in on the proposal on Monday. The community continues to mourn loved ones who have died from an opioid overdose. Last night, about 30 people joined together outside the downtown Mission to pay tribute. Last year, 63 people died from an opioid overdose in Windsor, Essex. And across the country, the pandemic has made the situation even worse. One man who attended the event at the Mission spoke with CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa. He says they're numb to losing friends to addiction.
It's here because over the past 3 years, I can't count how many people I know personally that we've lost. You know what I mean? It affects more than just homeless people. It affects their families, and you know what I mean? I was here just to support everybody here and the people that aren't here anymore, you know what I mean? It happens so often, we become numb to it very quickly, and that's sad, it's scary. It's an everyday occurrence. Every day we hear about somebody that OD'd the night before or early in the morning or whatever. Just before I got here, I heard about it too. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow. It's just, but like when it becomes that common, that's when you become numb to it.
When you hear that in Windsor, Essex, 63 people lost their lives due to an opiate overdose, what comes to mind for you?
it's like I said, that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because I see it every day. I see it every day, and with this Narcan that everybody carries, it's made it even easier for us to become numb to the fact that people die, because I've seen people out for 15 minutes, blue, gray, they're gone, only for Narcan to kick in and boom, they open their eyes and back to normal. You know what I mean? Feel pretty crappy for a little while, but then it's right back to your regular routine. That is a dangerous thing, you know what I mean? Because it takes the shock factor of an overdose away.
What some call Suicide Hill in East Windsor's Little River area is now called Hope Hill. Council endorsed the name during last night's meeting. The local Canadian Mental Health Association says words matter, and this new official name will help reduce the stigma and be less triggering for people in the community.
Think, especially after the last 18 months, we need some hope more than ever in our lives. And nature is a positive space for mental health and our wellness. So I think a name that better reflects that is good for our whole community. And I think a lot of times, too, around suicide, there's fear of even approaching that subject matter. It's so deep. And really, we need to normalize those conversations. So this is a starting point for that as well.
The CMHA held a naming contest, and they say this was by far the most popular name. Even though Suicide Hill was never its official title, a Hope Hill sign will be installed in the area to mark the change. The month of September also marks Suicide Awareness Month. Active cases of COVID-19 have dipped back below 300 in Windsor, Essex. At 288, it's a sign that cases are on a continual downward trajectory after getting up to more than 500 active cases last month. Now, with that said, we've got 37 new cases of COVID-19 today, and one more person has died, a woman in her 50s. There are also 22 ongoing outbreaks, down from 24 as of yesterday, and 5 of those are outbreaks at schools. 1 week after winning another minority mandate, Justin Trudeau is laying out his government's post-election priorities. The Prime Minister is promising a series of steps to ramp up the fight against COVID-19 while also keeping foreign affairs and climate change high on his agenda. CBC's Travis Danraj has the details.
I can't go anywhere. I can't do shit.
A dose of straight talk for the re-elected Prime Minister moments before his first major news conference since the campaign.
Why you feel you have a strengthened mandate when you're coming back with basically the same number of seats?
A prime minister and a government needs to think about the people who voted for them, but also about people who didn't vote for them, and make sure that in the decisions we're taking, we are delivering for all of them.
Despite criticism about having called the election, Trudeau says he is ready to take on the challenges ahead and bring back the House of Commons before the end of the fall.
I have asked Chrystia Freeland to continue serving as Deputy Prime Minister and our Minister of Finance.
The rest of his cabinet will be announced and sworn in next month, tasked with 5 immediate priorities: getting federal workers vaccinated, ensuring planes and trains require travelers to be double vaxxed, paying for provincial vaccine passport programs, developing a proof of vaccination program for international travelers.
And 5th, we're going to keep good on our word to protect our frontline health workers who have stepped up for us these past many months, and ensure that anyone who harasses or intimidates them is faced with criminal sanctions.
After the homecoming of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig Friday, there were also questions about China and why Huawei technology hasn't been banned, something Trudeau says the government is considering.
We have actually seen that many Canadian telecommunications companies, if not all of them, have started to remove Huawei from their networks and are moving forward in ways that doesn't involve them as a company.
Foreign affairs, the pandemic, and climate change, all third-term challenges, and pushing that Liberal agenda forward will be no easy task. Still, Trudeau says he's up for it and brushed off questions about the possibility of him stepping down as leader.
And I can't wait to get into it.
Travis Danraj, CBC News, Ottawa.
After spending more than 1,000 days in Chinese prison, both Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig are gradually adjusting to normal life in Canada. And nowadays, that also means getting your COVID-19 vaccine shot. Here's how Kovrig's local pharmacy handled his visit.
We blasted City and Color coming home on the speakers, and we gave him a standing ovation. No, he didn't want any of it. He was kind of very humble about it. And he was joking around. He was like, "Is this what you do for everyone that comes in for a vaccine?" And we said, obviously not.
The pharmacist praised Kovrig for prioritizing getting vaccinated as soon as possible. And speaking of things we've missed during the pandemic, Kovrig also stopped at a salon. His barber posted this picture on Facebook and called it an honor to cut his hair. And now for a story about tying the knot and obeying pandemic travel restrictions. A New York couple recently said "I do" in front of friends and family on the Canada-U.S. border.
So long as you both shall live.
I absolutely do.
Brian, you may kiss the bride.
The bride's parents and grandmother all live in Canada, and with the border still closed, they couldn't make the official ceremony, so the couple got creative, and they brought the wedding to them one day early on a quiet street in Burke, New York. How about that? Impromptu nuptials straddling the international line between two countries. The bride's father says he wishes he could have walked his daughter down the aisle, but says this was the next best thing. A live look again at our riverfront there. Just a wonderful forecast to look forward to this week, though there is a bit of a bump in the forecast this weekend. Colette Kennedy will be here right after the break with the full weather breakdown. UK is gearing up to host a crucial global summit to tackle climate change, set to kick off October 31st. Governments around the world are being urged to come to the table with their plan to cut carbon emissions. And while some are calling on countries to exceed previous targets, there are others who say they are still waiting for earlier commitments to be met. Chris Brown reports.
The projection on Glasgow's historic steeple screams of a climate emergency and counts down to the tipping point of when it will be too late to prevent global warming from exceeding 1.5 degrees.
What do we want? When do we want it?
With a month to go before the COP conference, activists and politicians are gathering in Milan, where Greta Thunberg castigated world leaders for not being bold or brave enough.
The emissions are still rising. The science doesn't lie.
Ahead of Glasgow, nations will be expected to finalize firm emission reduction measures and fund a big pot of money to help poor nations transition to low-carbon economies. Canada's Environment Minister has been given the job of wrangling up some of that cash.
We're working right now to corral commitments from all countries so that we're making progress towards that $100 billion number, which is the commitment.
This Bangladeshi climate scientist says it's disheartening that it's proving so difficult to get even that done.
Money was easy, and they just failed to do it. To me, that strikes me as being totally incompetent and negligent.
While hitting the key climate policy targets is key, COP26 is also meant to be inclusive, and there are growing concerns that people from countries with the most at stake may not be able to effectively participate. Mim Black and Yvonne Blake speak for civil society groups. They fear tough COVID border controls in the UK and the lack of vaccines in many parts of the world will mean many people will be shut out of COP.
The visa restrictions prevents people who should be here. Poverty prevents people who should be here.
Scotland, meanwhile, is preparing for the moment when everyone shows up. As always, police are hoping any conflict is limited to strong language, but are preparing in case it becomes more than that. Chris Brown, CBC News in Glasgow.
Colette Kennedy is here with a look at weather. Colette, another day in which I can't complain because the sun is shining and it's awesome.
Yeah, it really is awesome. We're seeing some beautiful conditions because of this ridge of high pressure that's lowered itself there, really taking over the weather pattern for the lower Great Lakes. But interesting is what's happening with the heat just to the west of us. So yesterday I was mentioning Harrow, the hot spot in Ontario, 28 degrees. Well, that hot spot in Ontario, same temperature, but today it's at Fort Frances. And just have a look at some of these readings. Is it fall? I don't know. When you're talking about 29 right now in Winnipeg, Weyburn, Saskatchewan, it's currently 32 degrees. In Yellowgrass, North Saskatchewan, though, it's 34 degrees at the moment. So here we are, Windsor. Beautiful day, but just into that ridge where it's pulling down some of that cooler air from the north, and it has more of a fall-like feel to it. And temperatures for Chatham-Kent at 18, Sarnia at 15. In terms of what we're seeing, and the feels-like temperature very close to this. Windsor right now, it's at 21, so not like it was yesterday when it was feeling like the upper 20s, close to low 30s at times. Now, what's happening here, even though we're under a ridge of high pressure, isn't that normally drier conditions? Yes, but we are getting some of that air passing over the lakes, and so we're talking about some lake effect showers well to the north, but still there. The other thing, just of note, still very far away from southwestern Ontario, but just of note that the frost advisories I talked about yesterday expanded. A few more areas getting their frost advisories coming their way for tonight. What we're looking at is just mostly clear conditions through those overnight hours towards London, stretching back towards the west end of Lake Ontario. A little bit of fog development, so some reduced visibility if you might be traveling or need to be on the road overnight tonight. But in through the day tomorrow, the sun is back. There is going to be this feature that wants to push some of that cloud deck back towards us from east to west. Now, what will happen is we'll just see a few extra clouds coming in, really not Wednesday. That doesn't come until we get to Thursday. Temperatures tonight, We could slip into the single digits. I think we'll just kind of hang on, but certainly some cooler readings. Sarnia, Chatham-Kent, and over there for London as well. Tomorrow afternoon, very pleasant day when you're talking about 22 degrees here coming to the end of September. Lots of 20s on the board. Overnight lows not too bad. You probably noticed, though, the next chance of getting some wet weather, a good chance, is coming towards the weekend, Katerina.
I see that, but again, I'm compartmentalizing, focusing on the sun. That's all I need.
You do that. Good idea.
Thanks, Colette. Now, when we come back, an update in the rescue operation in Northern Ontario after dozens of miners became trapped underground on Sunday. So we'll have the latest right after the break. The rescue operation continues in Northern Ontario to save miners trapped nearly 1 kilometer underground since Sunday. So far, at least 35 of 39 miners have made it safely to the surface of the Totten mine near Sudbury. One miner who made it out shared his exhilaration.
I'm ready to go home, ready to go see my family. I feel great.
The trapped miners have had to make a long, slow climb out using an emergency exit set of stairs up to 1,200 meters long. That's the equivalent height of roughly 2 CN towers. Officials say so far no one has been injured. The emergency developed over the weekend when a loose piece of equipment damaged the main elevator shaft. Canada's first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is coming on Thursday. Indigenous leaders are calling on people to solemnly reflect upon the legacy of residential schools, as well as listen to survivors. A growing number are sharing their stories, giving Canadians the chance to learn more from those with firsthand experience. The CBC's Leonard Monkman has more.
Betty Ross says it's been a tough year. She's an elder from Pimachikamak Cree Nation. But she says she's fortunate because she has other residential school survivors to lean on for support.
It is so crucial, it is so important to have that, because when somebody stands by you, and I want to refer back to the residential schools, we had no supports in those eras, nothing, not even doctors, nurses when we were sick or hurting. But to have that cohesiveness with the thrivers now, it's just beyond words.
Christina Kitchikizek is folding orange shirts and sweaters that will be gifted to residential school attendees and their families. She attended Guy Hill Residential School near the Pas for 14 years.
I wasn't able to talk to anybody or trust anybody for the longest time until I reconnected with the culture, ceremonies, sweats, medicines, and etc., all the good stuff. And a lot of that is happening in this one organization, and I've learned a lot from them. And, well, we learned lots from each other.
Kitchikizek is talking about the Thrivers, a peer support group for residential school survivors in Winnipeg that includes traditional healing. The Thrivers get out on the land, pick medicines, and meet up with each other to offer one another support. In the lead up to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the group is not just helping themselves. They're sharing the stories with some of Manitoba's MLAs.
This is the start of Reconciliation Week, Sacred Fire. As we approach September 30th, we wanted to remind people that they can take action. And one of the ways to take action in reconciliation is to come to events like this.
Eva Wilson-Fontaine organized this event, but has been connected to the Thrivers group for years.
They've done lots of work in their healing, and the uncovering of the 215 children, it took a toll on them, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, and it did on all of us, but more so for them.
Groups like the Thrivers have built trust with each other and share openly. It's how they got through the stories that came out after the discovery of unmarked graves in Kamloops, and they're encouraging others to reach out to friends and families to do the same.
It's a healing to share. It's a healing to cry, and that's your way of finding out who you are, and so crucial to find out who you are today, where you're from, and what you went through, and where you're going.
Leonard Monkman, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops says it's giving $30 million to help support survivors of the residential school system. It's a pledge that has been called long overdue, and it comes just days after the bishops issued an official apology. The apology was met with mixed feelings from Indigenous organizations and survivors of residential schools. Meanwhile, the bishops have also committed to sharing church records with communities looking to identify and memorialize children who died while being forced to attend residential schools. And that is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. You all have a wonderful night.